All right, I'm going to keep that fucking cocksucker part in, and we're starting the episode right meow. Because it's a late start, so I don't want to let this episode go on too long. Welcome back, Brandon. Thank you. Welcome back. I'd like to welcome the fans back. All of our fans who've been ravenous and who've probably been missing us because we didn't put out an episode last week because we didn't see the fights as they happened.
Jump over to that cerebral palsy guy that like kills us in the views and everything. He's very good though. You guys should check him out. We'll link him on the Instagram or something. That guy's dope.
Yeah, sure. Give me the work of linking. I don't even know who this guy is.
British guy with cerebral palsy. Great breakdowns, MMA breakdowns.
And he kills us on the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, we'll get there eventually with help from listeners like you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up at the top of the episode because I was thinking like, okay, we'll talk about it later. But I thought to myself like, well, if anybody's going to hear it now towards the top of the episode, it's going to be our best shot of having anyone get a chance to hear this section. But we were planning to do end of the year fight plug awards.
Yeah.
So we wanted to let our listeners know, or anybody who's listening right now, that we want to hear your thoughts about what categories that we should be considering for the awards and for whatever awards that we discuss here. Like, let us know if there's any fighters that we're not considering or fights. We're going to do all the standard stuff. Male fighter of the year, female fighter of the year, fight of the year, fight card of the year, comeback of the year. That fun one that I mentioned, milk carton fighter of the year. So that would be any fighter who isn't retired but hasn't competed in the year of 2022. There's a lot of other fun stuff we can do. Best promo, best comeback of the year. There's a fight. There's
fighting Coxman of the year, Roman Dolizzi.
Yeah. So, but we really want your input because we have a whole year's worth of fights to kind of pour through, and I'm sure that there's stuff that we missed, stuff on undercards. I was just looking up Matt Schnell a little bit before we got on this meeting because of his fight, and his fight with Suma Dairji earlier this year in July that's probably going to be my pick or my nomination for comeback fight of the year.
That was crazy. Yeah, and he not only comeback, but that's crazy that you bring that up and it's cool that he's on the card coming up because I guess from like a lot of like, I don't know how, like, I don't have any inside information. Like you're basically like, whenever I tell stories like this guy I know told me. So, but from what I had read, like he was like pretty much on his way out. Like if you don't win, and even if he did win, but it wasn't like really, it was like a decision or just a ho-hum type of thing. He was probably gone.
Oh,
and then his knees were gone too, right? He had like ACL. His ACL was out, or like I guess he had like a really bad. Or no, that was Suma Dairji.
I would think that was Suma Dairji. Yeah, he had the wraps on his knees.
Yeah, he had a bad knee, but like that was just insane. That was fucking crazy.
Yeah, if anybody who doesn't know what fight we're talking about, Matt Schnell versus Suma Dairji. Look up Matt Schnell. You're probably not going to be able to spell Suma Dairji.
He came out to Reba McIntyre. I was like, dude, this guy's sick. I was like, who is this guy?
And in that second round, Suma Dairji had him dead to rights. Like if it kept going the way it was going, it was getting pretty close to an easy 10-8 round. Arguably, if he didn't finish Matt Schnell in that round, could have been a 10-7 round because he just kept stunning him. He just kept finding a home for the right hand, and those elbows were just freezing Matt Schnell in place. And then Matt Schnell rallied, was on the ground, and then hit a sweep, and the rest is history. But a lot of fun stuff for us to go down memory lane for this first year of our podcast recording, and I think that would be a great way to kind of like commemorate some of these fighters. And I think it's going to help me to actually go back and listen to our reactions on some of the previous episodes too, because I don't know about you. I don't go back and listen to our episodes. I never have. I know you probably were at the beginning, right? But that's something I had.
Every now and then, like when I just hate myself, and then like I just go, look, you fucking loser. Look at you.
When we still had when we were still doing the camera on camera episodes.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. I was just like, that's why she left you. That's why she left you. Look at you. Look at that hairline. It's clapped.
It's clapped, dude.
Oh, look at you, you baby gorilla.
But yeah, that is our invite to you, to our listeners to comment, like and comment, subscribe, but definitely comment and let us know what your picks are. If you have any ideas for card of the year, fight of the year, recency bias is all right with us. We understand that we're probably gonna suffer from a bit of recency bias as well. But
so you had comeback fight of the year was Match Now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that God, I'm so mad. But it was Nate Land. It was Nate Landwehr, right? Was that crazy ass fight? When he jumped on, he's the guy that like has that like
the ghetto.
He was
yeah.
He was and then he came. He didn't fight in KSW. He fought in, what was it? The Russian promotion, right? For a long time, he was like a savage over there. That's my early front runner.
Right,
yeah. That one was insane.
With David Onama or
David
Ludovic
Onama,
Klein.
Yeah,
David Onama. That was this year.
Yeah, what was crazy was I don't know why I got it, and that was such a kind of like unassuming card. That was the Tua card too, right? Was that when Tua ended Greg Hardy's life?
That was Marlon Vera and Dominic Cruz.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. He was the co-main event on that one. The same one with Yasmin Yadagui and Yasmin Lucindo.
Who Yasmin's fighting this why can't people get her name right?
Why?
No one can get Wadaki right.
I think it also fucked things up too.
Where we live, because I've heard Wadaki a lot. So, and then I hear like people reading it off like, oh, and Yasmin Jurique. I'm just like, what? What's so hard about Wadaki?
I'm not sure. I think, Wadaki sounds weird to me, but I also know that like, but then again, I think I've mentioned it on like a past episode before. Like I get tripped out about like Mexicans who pronounce Reese when it's convenient.
Oh yeah, there are some that do say Reese. Yeah.
So I'm not sure there, but I think she was doomed from the start because it was Yasmin fighting Yasmin. So there's already a little bit of a name confusion there.
A weirdo, yeah.
I think people will. I think people will learn her name appropriately soon, though. They just need to hear it a little bit more. But let's talk about this. Let's touch on the Nzechukwu versus Kutalaba card a little bit, which was supposed to be the Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak card, but Derek Lewis on the day of the fight had to pull out because of some stomach issues or undisclosed illness. So that fight didn't get to go down.
Right? What that was?
I believe later in that day, or as late as the next day, there was a report that the doctors cleared him. They said there was seemingly nothing wrong with him.
Oh,
so,
dude, that's
weird. And I don't believe Derek Lewis has publicly like explained like what happened there or anything. It was just an undisclosed illness. So
because I forgot about it. I just forgot about it. We went to Thanksgiving and I was like, whatever. And then we didn't end up doing a podcast. So I just didn't care. But now that you bring it up, I was like, I never heard what that was. Because a lot of times it comes out and you're just like, damn, that sucks. Hopefully he's okay.
Yeah. And oftentimes too, sometimes you'll find out that it was like an injury that they were training through and late in, at the 11th hour, they decided, I just can't go through with this. But it's not often that they'll sustain an injury that late in the game. They're usually just.
Wish TJ Dillashaw would have took a card out of old Black Beast's deck there.
Well, that fight night card, it kind of got a pretty bad rep. We weren't exactly super high on it going into it either. But I thought of what I did watch, it did deliver. But I understand that between the opening fight and the main card, like all of those fights went to decision. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
It started out with Natalia Silva getting a fucking amazing spinning back kick finish of Teresa Bleda. So we started out with some fire finishes. Yeah,
that was super crazy looking.
super exciting prospect there at women's flyweight. But then as we continued on through the card, it was decision until we got to our boy Jack Della Maddalena, who was standing across the cage from Danny Roberts, and put the finishing touches on him. Now Jack Della Maddalena sitting at 3 first-round finishes in this welterweight division and just looking unstoppable, just looking so exciting, man.
And then he clears, like, after taxes and fees, like 5 G's per fight or whatever it is. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah, he's coming off of that first round finish win of Danny Roberts, liver punch finish in round 1 of Ramazan Ameev in the previous fight that was on UFC 275 back in June, and then he has this finish over Pete Rodriguez. So yeah, he's looking amazing ever since he came off of the Contender Series. I would like to see someone test his grappling a little bit more, just to really find out where the holes are. But his stand up, man, his instincts, his distance work, he just looks fantastic. His defense is on point. He's not. He has the energy of a berserker, but it's not wild. It's everything is
very
really really
measured.
slick, man.
Yeah, and it's not looping, because he looks, the way the guys go down when he hits them, or the way they react when he hits them, it looks like kind of almost like they get hit by like a Michael Chandler shot, or like a Justin Gaethje shot, where it's like they get shot with something, they get hit with like a gun. It looks like, but he's throwing very straight, very like on point, down the pipe shots that are hitting these guys. He's not throwing anything like from his knee. Everything's like hands up, straight to the face, and it's just like Jesus Christ. And his body shots are ruthless. Everything's timed perfect. Everything is just so perfectly timed.
Yeah, those body shots really really messed up his opponent. You can tell that when he had him in trouble, you're just not thinking. He was just covering up in the head, and you'd see him rip to the body. Even in those moments when a lot of less experienced fighters would just headhunt and go for the kill, he remained patient. And man, I'm super excited. There's a lot of fun matchups for him at welterweight also potentially.
Yes,
I'm looking at where he's at on Tapology. He's ranked number 19. Just ahead of them is a guy, this would be some Aussie on Aussie crime. I don't know if they train together. I don't think they do. Jake Matthews would be fantastic.
Yes, it would.
Jake Matthews has a fight coming up with Matt Semmelsberger. So let's say potentially the winner of that fight, I would be all over Jack Della Maddalena versus Muslim Salikov, who we also saw in this.
Yeah, he had said, like, I want to fight in Australia before the end of the year, right? Isn't it in Perth where he's from?
Yes.
And so, like, he's like, I want to do that now. So it would be hard for him to fight Matthews at that point, but
true.
I wonder. And then Salikov went a little longer than he did. I'm sure he didn't take any damage at all. So, but yeah, you're right on those two so far.
Also kind of in that neighborhood, Alex Morono. Yeah, there's a lot there. We don't have to try and match make too hard, because it'll be a little while till we see him again. But yeah, really, really excited to see him keep climbing up the welterweight division. Next up on the card, we had another appearance by Andre Fialho. And dude, has this guy fought? Let me pull up his record now that I'm looking at it, because I think Andre Fialho, I feel like we've talked about him on like 4 episodes. He's been so fucking busy this year, dude.
And he's a Portuguese dude, right? Or he's from is from.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
2022. That was his 5th fight in 2022.
Damn.
1, 2. Yeah, so he's gone 2-3 in 2022 with
he looked
losses
like a guy in his 5th fight. He did in his 5th fight. It was like, damn, take a breather, dude.
That is a perfect way to describe it, because he kind of just seemed to seemingly hit a brick wall with Muslim Salikov. Like it really seemed like that was a 3-round fight, right? Yes, it was, of course. I would say when he ran into some trouble in the second round, because I had him winning that first round, but once Muslim
Yeah.
Salikov really started to find a home for the spinning kicks and his sneaky left hook, I think it was a left hook, like Fialio just seemed like it was like paralysis by analysis. All he can do
Hmm.
is stand there and take it and just wonder, hey, like, why aren't you just like standing in front of me so we could bang? Like, he was just
Yeah,
totally shut
exactly.
down.
Good. Yeah, good point, dude. He looked like he was in between minds, like what he was going to do. And then his reactions were late. Everything was just late. His timing, his distance management, everything was just off. It was just,
Mhm.
so it just makes you wonder, man, because it's not just 5 fights, it's 5 training camps. Like a UFC training
Yes.
camp is very hard. You know what I mean? It's 5 times making weight. I don't know anything here or there about,
Mhm.
whether his cuts are okay or not. I don't imagine that it's easy for him. But yeah, that's five fucking full camps getting ready, and he's fought some decent guys, so it's not. He's got to be. And then from what I understand too, he has some really good training partners, so I'm sure he helps out a lot of guys in their training camp. So it's not just 5 fights; it's 5 fucking training camps, hard training camps, UFC level, and it's got to be rough on him.
Showing here that he's affiliated with Killcliff FC, and they have notable fighters like Robbie Lawler training there, Derek Brunson. I'm seeing
Yeah, you're.
Iron Mike Chandler. I don't know how current this is, but there's a
Yeah,
lot of faces that have been in and out of that
and I'm sure him
affiliation
being.
out of
I
Deerfield Beach,
mean,
Florida.
he's a UFC fighter and a good
Mm.
fighter, but I'm sure he's not top guy at the gym to kind of call out when he wants to spar or who he wants to spar. I'm sure it's like Andre Gutierrez in there. You know what I mean? Kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah, good
But
point.
here I
And
am acting like I know what the how
like
the fuck these are run. Oh, I turned
like
into
we're
Eugene Behrman all of a sudden.
like we're in the room down there.
Yeah.
All we have to go off of him at this point is that he's a guy who really, really likes to stay busy, and it's hard to imagine that he's not going to continue to do that. He really seems content to just go until he burns out because he fought 4 times in 2021 too. So even before he made his splash in the UFC, he was
Nine
stayed very
fights in two
busy.
years is a lot.
Yeah.
Am I tripping? That kind
No,
of sounds
that's
like a lot.
insane. That's
Yeah.
a ton, man. So yeah, that guy can use a break, but like I said, I'll be very curious if he actually takes it or if he manages to get one more in before the end of
Yeah.
2022. He should not, absolutely not. But it wouldn't
What's
surprise me
yours?
if we see him as early as February. What's that?
What's your sweet spot for someone? Maybe not so much a champ. It's like for like all the faults though. I always seem to point out for Adesanya, he's busy. Like he
Yeah.
fights. So like what is your sweet spot? Like how many times would you like to see maybe a contender? Not so much a champ, but a contender, like a guy who's within the top 15. How many fights do you think would you like to see a guy fight?
I mean, obviously 3. I think
Yeah.
that's the reasonable number to throw out there. But
Hmm.
as long as they're getting 2 in a year and trying to get that third one in, then I think that's good because I understand injuries and all that stuff. So
And it
here I am
also
saying I
depends
understand,
on
but
like we are just talking about Della Maddalena, who first round finishes, bang, 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 bang.
mhm.
Okay, well then just fucking jump right back in there if you're okay,
True.
So
Yeah,
why
not all
not?
fights are created equal. Too, you're going to come out with
Yeah,
a certain amount of damage and stuff. But
it
yeah,
seems like
3.
he's been in some pretty like not I wouldn't say wars, but so he trades like he's definitely not like walking out of there clean even on his best fights. So.
We talking about Fialio still?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, 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 no problem. Yeah, yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think 3 is that sweet spot for the fighters too, because that difference
Yeah,
between like 2 and 3 paychecks is big if we were talking about your yearly total income. So I think that even the fighters would probably ideally like to go with 3, and that would put them in a position to where they're not feeling like they're really, really rushing and never having any downtime between fights. Because once you get into 4, then you're quarterly, and it's just every 3 months just chugging away and just getting ready for the next one.
You're
But
just like always in. I would 5 fights. It seems like you're just always in camp. You're just always in camp. That's got to be kind of rough on your body, metabolically, mentally, everything.
yep. So how about what else did you see from this card? Did you watch Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Chase Sherman, or the main event, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Ian
I
Cutelaba?
missed. I did go back and watch the Kennedy Nishikwu finish, but I missed everything after the Salikov fight. I had leave for my daughter's birthday party after that, but I did finish or I
Gotcha.
came back and watched the finish.
Any takeaways from Kennedy Nzechukwu? Is he looking like somebody who's potentially going to like inject some vigor into this UFC light heavyweight division? No, he's not moving the needle for you
Well,
just yet.
maybe the light heavyweight division, maybe, but maybe at the bottom half of it. But I think if they were to fight again, it could happen the exact opposite way. If they were fighting again on this card, like if all things were considered, I think Ian Cutelaba could have done the same thing to him, maybe, or not maybe in the same way, but could win like just a week later. If it were like in baseball or football, or not football, but baseball or basketball, in the playoffs, they have like a 4-game series or 3-game series. If him and Cutelaba fought in a 3, I like to see them fight in a series. I'm sure it would go back and forth and back and forth. One win, they trade off wins, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Nzechukwu is kind of like starting to become known as a notorious slow starter, taking that first round off, and he did the same thing here. And Iwan Cutelaba is notoriously known for being a guy who blows his gas tank early and then goes out there and is a berserker early and then kind of fades. So on paper, it looked like a potentially interesting kind of matchup there, given with that dynamic in play. And Iwan Cutelaba, he did find some success. He was able to get Nzechukwu down. I don't want to say easily.
Right.
It's hard to really get a sense of like, okay, was that he got the jump on me, so I'm just giving the position away, or how well it was defended. But Nzechukwu, when he had him hurt, though, man, the timing of that knee, it was just super impressive.
That was clean. That was a good one,
I'm willing to be a little bit higher on Nzechukwu, but more just like still a wait and see. I think in general, not even specifically Nzechukwu, but just the guys who are coming up at light heavyweight now. We saw Ryan Spann have a really, really impressive performance, knocking out Dominic Reyes. There was Carlos Olberg that we saw a few weeks ago, and I started to see like, okay, they're all kind of spread out. They're not necessarily like right at, in the same area rankings wise, but there's some exciting guys coming up in the light heavyweight division, and they're not breaking the meta either. There's not like a guy other than maybe like Shoeface or something, but like they're doing well in the ways that we're used to seeing light heavyweights do well, and that is just like putting heavy punches and knees and kicks on each other, and
it's crazy because light heavyweight to me, especially like in boxing too, but it always seemed like, okay, heavyweight, okay, that's like the king type of deal, but light heavyweight always seemed like a light heavyweight is a bad motherfucker. Like you have to be, because usually you're talking about like 6'2", 6'4", probably walks around about 220, walking around just like chilling. That's a fucking big boy.
That's
that
a
can
unit
fucking
right
fight.
there.
Yeah, that guy can kick some fucking, and that's like a scary type of, because they're athletic too, but they're huge. I guess John Jones clearing out the fucking the division the way he did, maybe, but damn, you would think that would be like the light heavyweight division in the UFC. You'd probably think there's some crazy ass motherfuckers, but that's that's like football player type guys. So I guess if you're super freaking athletic and crazy, you're probably playing another sport.
Good point. And you touched on it very briefly about like what the title picture of the light heavyweight division was for a long time with John Jones there.
Yeah.
And I think we might have discussed it a little bit on one of our previous episodes about how like it really did seemingly start to open it up. And the title's been a little bit of a hot potato title. It's moved from 3 guys in John's absence.
Again. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into this fight night, Thompson versus Holland card, let's talk about what's going on right now at the top of the light heavyweight division with Jiri Prochazka
Crazy.
injuring his shoulder, having to pull out of his upcoming fight with Glover Teixeira, and now seemingly against reason, now we end up with Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant
Stupid.
light heavyweight title. It's weird. Props
Stupid.
to Jiri Prochazka for being a G and being like, yo, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be out for a while. I'm not gonna hold up this division. I'm vacating the title, dude. All the respect in the world to Jiri for
That's
that. That's some
monster
real
cock energy because it's like, go ahead, fuck with it. I'll come and get it. That's
yes,
crazy.
yeah. And
That's
I was
crazy.
telling Mike, I was like, this is some fucking samurai mindset, Bushido mindset, or
Yeah.
something like that. Because that's no, there's a lot of other people in this organization might say they would do the same, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't. They'll,
Nobody would. Nobody would. And there's guys who haven't. Like Connor, they had to like fucking yank it out of Connor's hands. And he wasn't even injured. He just didn't want to fight.
yeah,
And
dude held up two titles.
yeah. And so it's just like, what? And then two, not only that, the thing that's super impressive is that apparently it's like a catastrophic ass fucking injury. So for him to be that confident in like, no, I'll rehab and get back and then I'll win it again. To be that confident in that is crazy because just having that and it'll never leave it'll never leave like his name like UFC champ, but
Mhm.
like once this the Ankalaev and Blachowicz fight goes down, they're going to be crowned champ. A lot will probably think that they're interim. It'll feel like an interim championship to me anyway.
Mhm.
Especially so if Ankalaev wins it, would it feel more of like an interim championship than if Jan wins it, since Jan was a previous? How would it feel interim to you at all?
Oh, absolutely. Because those guys were already
Yeah,
going to fight, right? They were
yeah,
already booked against each other for, was it the same? Yeah, December 10th. It was on the same card, 282. So it's a fight we were already going to get. And suddenly, oh, it's for the title now. It was really weird. And I was disappointed to hear that Glover Teixeira offered to fight Jan Blachowicz at, I believe it was 283. And the UFC said
yeah.
no. It's just like, I would love to.
How does that not? Yeah,
It makes too much sense. And to be fair, I would love to hear the actual reasoning behind it because it's not as
yeah.
if
There's got to be
Jan
something.
Blachowicz,
Yeah,
yeah, because it's not as if Blachowicz versus Ankalaev is some like marquee fight that they would rather make instead. But
right.
Glover being the most recent former champion versus another former champion in Glover and
Yeah,
Jan Blachowicz, a rematch of their title fight. Just to me, it just has all the intrigue on paper. It's also not screwing over Glover because Glover is what 40. Let me look it up now. He doesn't have a whole lot of time left, and we know that. We know this. He
right.
has 43. We know that this fight, this title fight with Jiri Prochazka, very likely would have been his last hurrah. So now it's kind of hard to imagine that those two are going to face off again, given the amount of time that Jiri Prochazka is
Yeah,
going to have to be off. So I guess Glover Teixeira will be ringside watching this fight intently, wondering if he's going to get in there and trade with Jan Blachowicz or
yeah.
Magomed
That was
Ankalaev
one of
again.
the most ridiculous things I've ever heard that didn't happen because I didn't even think about it. As soon as because I was just more worried about what was going to happen with Prohashka. Like, okay, is he okay? Was it his knee? Because I guess it being his shoulder, that's cool. That's cool. Like, I was really worried it was like an Achilles tendon or like a really bad knee injury, where those kind of you can carry those on. And I don't know much about shoulder injuries,
Mm,
but I feel like the way he fights, having like a bad Achilles tendon or knee could
mm,
really fuck with the way he fights going forward. So
mm,
hopefully the shoulder doesn't mess with him and he'll be able to rehab it. Um, but damn, I wasn't even thinking about it. And then when I think you had sent me the link to a story where they are, oh god dang it, Glover had offered to fight in Brazil, and I was like, wow, that makes just all the points that you just made, as far as like two previous champions rematch, not screwing Glover over, and it just and Uncle Iver's good, and
mm,
he's. I think this was going to be. but he needed the Blachowicz fight to maybe prove that he can be at that level, which I'm sure he is, and I think he's gonna win, honestly.
Mm.
But it's really sad for Glover, and it felt like that day just felt like you're like just, I can't even explain it, like really put it into words how sad that is. I guess just
Yeah.
like you said, that his getting along in age, just because every month is like 3 months when you're that age, and especially in the fight game.
That's an interest. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And uh, I mean, with their previous fight being likely, we're probably going to get our nod for fight of the year very easily.
Yeah,
Like there's some contenders, and there's going to be some other fights that we definitely had to go back and look at to consider. But that one is at the top of everybody, a lot of people's lists. So it's kind of it's sad, and we were going into that one. I don't remember. I know I was a bit torn on it, but I was fully expecting the likelihood that Jiri Prochazka would absolutely run over Glover Teixeira. And
yeah,
I think at the very end, Mike swayed me and had me thinking like, no, you know what, Glover's going to pull this off. And then it just ended
yeah,
up being the best of both worlds. Like we got all the
yeah.
volleys and
No
and
losers in
momentum
that one.
shifts. Yeah. So yeah, the whole MMA world, who that is invested in this light heavyweight division, kind of took an L on that one, and maybe there's
Yeah,
some extra circumstances that we don't know about that made it not happen. But you make a great point about Ankalaev needing that Jan Blachowicz fight to really prove it to people, and
yeah,
now it's just for the title. And I didn't really think about that word. It's like it's true because in his previous fight, no one was being like, "Yeah, Ankalaev is the guy," but Jan
yeah.
Blachowicz, a former champion, would have been a fantastic win for him to really like make his mark in the division and be
Hmm.
undeniable.
And then in going back, kind of to hit on something you said earlier, where like listening back to our old podcast or whatever, um, talk like a lot of the talk before about Uncle I was like, man, he hasn't looked amazing. We know he has the potential to be amazing. We know he comes from the stock of the like just a championship area of the world, so we kind of know that it's in him. Why hasn't it? Why has it been lackluster leading up to his last fight? Like, why has it been that way?
Mm.
And then he won. It was a good fight, and then it was okay. He needs this here. This is going to be the like, can he do it against the previous champ, where he's a stepping stone?
Mm.
And now he's just getting the championship, and it does. It's not. I guess it's not unearned. It just feels weird. It just feels weird. It just feels like you have this car, you put a bunch of work into it, you fucking total the car out, and uh, they're like, oh, here's it. It's the same thing. It's the same. You get in the car, it doesn't feel the same. It smells
Mm.
different. The fucking turn signal sounds weird when it clicks, and it's just like this doesn't feel right. It's a car, but it just doesn't feel like my car. Does that make sense? Is that weird to
No,
say?
no, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's kind of feels like it's going to be just an interim title fight, and
Yeah.
I kind of feel like they probably. I mean, I guess with
Even the
Yuri
poster
Prochazka
sucks.
open,
The
yeah, it's
Yuri
just
and
a
Glover
replacement.
poster just looks badass. It just looks badass. They're just like, "Fuck you, dude." And then like Uncle I was like, "Oh, Abraham
Now it
Lincoln."
looks
Like,
like
what the hell? It's like
now it looks
Abraham
like
Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
a poor man's like Street Fighter, like real version of Guile versus the
Yeah.
bass player from the Muppets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, dude. The poster just looks weird. It's just like, this is so weird, dude. It's not
yeah, it's
weird.
missing the top knot. I am impressed that
Yeah.
they kind of like managed to find photos of both of them that are posed in like exactly the same way that Yuri and
Yeah.
Glover were posed. Like the graphic
Yeah.
designer was like, nah, I'm not doing any extra work. I'm literally
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
superimpose because you could almost if I just glanced at it, you could lie to me and tell me that they just swapped their heads, and I'd be like, oh, I
Oh,
guess
sure.
like I could see.
Yeah. Because I'm not looking at it like you are, but in my mind's eye, and maybe it was just I was pumped up for the rematch, but I was like, dang, this is gonna be sick. That poster looks sick.
Yeah,
But yeah, now that you bring it up, yeah, and it's making me laugh.
still
But
a
I
good
guess for
card.
me, it's like
Uh huh.
we got a light heavyweight championship at home. And it's like, Mom, can we stop for light heavyweight championship? It's like, nah, we got the light heavyweight championship at home, and like that's what we're getting, dude.
Yeah, so now that main card, Jan Blachowicz, Ankalaev at the top, obviously. Now the co-main is Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon. Also featuring Santiago Ponzinibbio, Robin Lawler, Darren Till, Dricus Duplessis, Bryce Mitchell, Ilya Taporia.
I'm excited for Duplessis. Like, I want to see that guy kick the shit out of Darren Till.
Still Knox this is a good opportunity for him because Darren Till is on a slump. So they're very much giving him.
They're like, look at Duplessis, like because they take like physique update pictures, and like Duplessis looks like he's getting ready for like Mr. Olympia, and then like Darren Till's all, hi, I'll be fighting. Fuck, dude. And his name is Dricus. Like, fuck, dude. Imagine telling your family, like, what do you do for a living? I'm fighting some guy named Dricus Duplessis. And they're just like, shit. Are you okay, dude?
Son, why don't you just take over the carpet store?
Yeah,
I've been waiting to hand you the reins. You don't got to fight guys named Dricus Duplessis.
Yeah, dude. And they're like, who? And then they look them up, and they like look at you, and then they look back at their phone. They're like, okay, well, good luck with that, dude.
Good luck against Still Knox. Let's get into this Thompson versus Holland fight night. And kind of like get into the nitty gritty and see which fights from here, because there is a worthy fight night. I'm looking at this and there's a lot of fights up and down this card that I'm
definitely tell. Yeah. And then Jack Black's walking Wonderboy out singing Wonderboy, right? Isn't that the rumor?
Sure.
That's cool.
Oh, that's an actual rumor that's going to happen?
No, that it is going to happen, that he's going to sing and walk Stephen Wonderboy out to that song.
Oh, I was in autopilot when I said sure. I didn't know about that at all.
R.I.P. Derek. R.I.P. Mr. Holland. Sorry about that, dude.
Let's start at the top then. Yeah.
They've been doing like videos together, right? Like
Stephen Thompson was on Kevin Holland's podcast. Yeah.
No, I mean,
or you're talking about Jack Black still.
And Wonderboy. They're doing like little snippets together, and they're like singing the song together, and then like Jack Black was he was showing. I'm not gonna like get into it because Jack Black's kind of like a ham type of deal, but I guess I read today that Jack Black's gonna sing as Wonderboy comes out. He's gonna sing Wonderboy live as he walks out.
You know, that's the first time hearing of it, and I'm all for it. It's silly. It is not at all ever like if you would have told me like, okay, the following fighters, one is true, the others are a lie. The following fighters are going to walk out with these musicians performing their music for them. If you would have told me that this one, Stephen Thompson with Jack Black, is one of them, I would have been like, that's the lie. That's not happening.
Yeah. Who would you have walk you out? Like, if you had to like have a live event and you're walking out to your main event, and then they're like, you can choose any artist you want. Obviously, like it has to be something that would ring true, because you can't have like I guess you could, but like you couldn't have like Tiesto doing it. You know what I mean? Because he's just like pressing a button or whatever, right. Like Deadmau5 or whatever, like pressing a button. Like you'd have to have someone singing, and like you probably couldn't have. I guess you could have a band, but like who would you choose?
It's a little bit of a tough question because you're also basically asking me to choose my walkout song.
Yeah,
and that would very likely depend. And I'm not even gonna lie, I have a playlist of like of songs that would be like walkout songs.
Okay. Yeah.
But it depends on the scenario too.
To choose your favorite kid or something.
Yeah, well, it depends on the scenario too. Like, am I in enemy territory? Am I fighting with home field advantage? Am I in their city? Is it a rematch? Is it? Am I an underdog? I have different songs that would be for appropriate.
Yeah, DMX is dead, so like we can't really.
Well, you're on the right track.
Yeah,
you're on the right track because I was leaning towards either Jay-Z or Nas, because why not? If it's You know, if it's an open, if it's literally just pick
Yeah.
any artist, like you're gonna make a splash with either of those guys.
Yeah.
And I'll just go ahead and pretend, for the sake of the hypothetical, that I'm fighting in New York, and both of them have
Oh
very, very
wow.
appropriate songs in their catalog for that scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, so it's
I'll go
Madison
with
Square
Nas.
Garden, and
Yeah,
Nas is walking out. Nice, dude.
yeah. How about you?
Fuck
Same
yeah.
question.
Oh
Ramon
man.
Ayala. All right.
Yeah, that dude, that would be sick, dude. Too bad Chelino and his son are dead. That would that kind of kills the mood now. I don't know. Fuck. Young Thug is in jail. Uh, Takeoff, R.I.P. He's gone, so can't. Two of the three Migos. I don't know. Um, Dang. Or have
Dang,
you
word to
ever
the
eaten
wise.
there? I think
Go on.
like maybe like Jizza or someone from the Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay.
Just kind of like fuck yeah, because there's songs you can rap those. Because like I think about it like you don't want like an overly produced song either, where it's like
Hmm.
super hard to hear what they're singing, or you know what I mean. Like you want something that like can kind of just like a dude in a microphone.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
would be fucking because it would just be so hard to like, oh, look over there, there's the band, and then here's the guy walking out, or you know. So I yeah, probably like Jizza, probably, or you know, or for real like Young Thug. That'd be
That's a
dope.
good option too, because like they have Jizza has plenty of songs, or you know, rappers in general. Like you could always also find songs
Yeah,
where I think it's important to pick songs if you can with no choruses,
yeah.
because you don't have to worry about the tempo changing or anything like that, or a change
Mhm.
in or like, oh, I need to be getting to the cage when this part of the
Yeah,
song kicks in. Like no, I like with a rapper, if it's I mean, I can't even think of a specific song, like New York State of Mind. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just going to go. And
yeah,
there's not officially choruses in that song. So you're right. Like they could just, all they need is the rapper and a microphone. And we're
yeah,
really getting into the weeds about hypothetical like walkout performances now. You could tell
yeah.
I'm really sold
But
on this Jack Black thing now.
yeah, how sick would Anderson Silva have been coming out to like DMX live, like back
That
in the
would have
day,
been
dude?
top tier. It
Fuck, with him
really
walking
is.
a dog out.
Yeah.
God damn.
It it really is sad that like the few examples we have of the UFC experimenting with this. And by the way, I love that the UFC is willing to do this. I
Yeah,
will you know, we're big critics of the UFC because we watch it so much, but I will give them credit for any time they are at least trying. As silly as it may
yeah.
seem, like they're trying to do something different. When they were doing the BMF thing, I didn't have that much of a problem with it. I was like, fuck it, why not? You know what I mean?
Why
Just
not? Who
try
gives a
something.
fuck?
Yeah, yeah. Break from the status quo, because if you let the UFC do their thing, they are very, very slow to make any kind of changes to their production.
Yeah.
And I think it sucks that like for a long time the only examples we have of this specific thing was Aaron Lewis and Sinead O'Connor for Chad Mendes and Conor
Oh,
McGregor. By the way,
jeez,
Chad
dude.
Mendes, way to pick the absolute
Yeah, dude.
boringest. Like, dude, we could see Aaron Lewis at the Tower, the Fox Theater or the Tower Theater, any like 3 fucking Fridays out
Yeah,
of the month in Visalia. Like me
yeah,
and my friends used to have a joke that they kept Aaron Lewis chained in the basement of the Fox
yeah.
Theater to just drag them out
Oh,
to
fuck.
perform every weekend.
I thought you were gonna save the Capitol, like because they caught him like storming the Capitol back on
Did
January 6th or whatever.
I don't know what his
But,
whereabouts were on January 6th, but
yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me.
he was there in his mind.
Let's talk. Let's talk about this actual matchup: Stephen
Fuck, we went
Thompson,
way off the rails.
Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland coming off of his, I'll say it, like borderline embarrassing loss to Hamzat Shemaev. No one was
And
really
then
giving him too much of a shot.
embarrassing. I'm retiring now. Yeah, I
Yes.
thought you were retired.
Yeah, yeah. He retired. He had me like for at least like 2 episodes of our podcast, like kind of chiming in. We're like, hey, Kevin Holland's still retired. What's going on? Do you
Yeah,
believe it? Do you not? And you
yeah,
held fast, and you're like, no, he is not retired. And you were
yeah. Hell no.
absolutely right. He said, hey, Dana, give me a fucking striker, and Dana gave him a striker. I don't think this is the striker Kevin Holland would have
Anybody
picked,
wants.
though.
Yeah.
No. How do you see this fight playing out? Do you think that that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson still has the physicality to kind of like, give Kevin Holland looks that he's not used to, and could this potentially be a boring matchup because of it?
I think Kevin Holland's going to do a little more grappling than we might be led to believe. I think he's going to go for a takedown, probably in the second round, maybe or so, if it gets to that point. I think and especially the fact that it's going to be a 5 round fight. He's going to try and if not take him down, create a situation where he can trip him or sweep him and get Wonderboy down. Because Holland he's good out. We've seen him knock dudes out from his back. Yeah. We've seen him do some pretty wild shit down on the ground. So I think he, in a traditional striking, just two dudes standing up in the middle of the cage. There aren't very many guys that can stand with Wonderboy doing that. But in a chaotic kind of weird situation, Holland is the guy. He would have the edge in that case. I think he's going to do that.
That would be logical. I mean, for as much as we've seen Holland come up short in his losses in the UFC because of grappling and wrestling specifically, it's touted a lot that he is a BJJ black belt under Travis Lutter. So I mean, he's certainly shouldn't be completely out of his element there. And when you look at Stephen Thompson's record, his previous 2 losses to Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad were just that. He was out grappled, out wrestled, controlled. I thought it was interesting that you're predicting that Kevin Holland would be shooting for a takedown in the second round. Is that because you kind of are picturing that he's going to be like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, why
is this shit?
Yeah. How does he keep kicking me from that far away, dog?
Like, yeah. It's like a step, bang, step, boom. Like, what the fuck? And so he's like, fuck this. And he's going to try and time on one of those kicks, which I don't know how you're going to time it, but he's going to try and like, oh, his leg's up. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get like an awkward takedown here and see what I can do on top.
So what you're pitching does kind of like, because I was going into this thinking like I think Stephen Thompson is going to get the upset here. Although I don't know if I should call it an upset. Let me see who's the dog here. I think it's a pick'em. Yeah, both minus 110, near even. So I was leaning towards Stephen Thompson. I think he's going to give Kevin Holland some different looks, because a lot of the guys that Kevin Holland has had success with in the stand-up really kind of indulged him and weren't really giving him any evasive lateral movement or presenting him with that kind of like bladed stance and getting him with those side kicks that kind of like that Stephen Thompson could just use like a jab to manage distance. I think that stuff is really, really going to give Kevin Holland trouble. I mean, I could be totally wrong. Kevin Holland might have an answer for that we haven't seen because nobody has made him dig that deep into his set of tools in the stand-up. But I hadn't really considered the possibility of Kevin Holland actually going to take him down. And I think it's because I almost kind of wonder how. I mean, Kevin Holland, is not someone I would think of when we were talking about high IQ fighters who are like thinking in the cage. You could see them making adjustments, and that's not a diss on him to say that he's a low IQ fighter. But when I ask you like, hey, who are some guys with really, really good fight IQ? It will take you a while to get to Kevin Holland, but he does so much talking in the cage. I have to believe that he's comfortable, and if he's comfortable, I have to believe that he's thinking. And so that would be a good tactical strategy. But I also kind of wonder if he literally called for a striker and then goes and proceeds to take the fight to the ground.
That's where my mind went. That's where my mind went, because I think that's kind of like the reverse psychology type of. That's where as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, he's gonna try some weird shit as far as like grappling, more than likely.
Because I know if Dana White would see that and be like, what the fuck are we doing here, man? You asked for a striker.
I guess that's just where my mind goes. It's like he's going to try something weird on the ground.
So we'll finalize our picks. I'm going to go ahead and stick with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You're picking Kevin Holland, the Trailblazer. And we will see how that one goes. Speaking of welterweights, though, in our co-main event, we have... Where's my damn tab? UFC Fight Night. There we go. Rafael dos Anjos versus Brian Barberena. And this is another thing that I meant to bring up while we were breaking down Thompson versus Holland, but let's just switch these fucking fights. Like, I think Kevin Holland should be fighting Brian Barberena, or rather, I think Stephen Thompson could or should be fighting Brian Barberena. I think it's really fucked up because Rafael dos Anjos has two really, really tough fights in a row where he gets, I mean, he really showed out against Renato Moicano and punished Moicano. That was a tough fight for Moicano. And then had a really, really strong showing, a really, really hard fight with Rafael Fiziev where he got finished at the very, very end in round 5. And then coming out of that fight with Fiziev, he straight out says, all right, you know, this path to the title isn't there for me anymore. I will acknowledge that, but I'm here for fucking legacy fights here now. I'm here for money fights. I'm not chasing the title. Yeah, he says, my title aspirations aren't there anymore, but I want these fucking banger fights. And the UFC says, okay, we'll have you fight Brian Barberena.
Yeah.
Or did I get?
And then I just hear it when you said it. I heard like the Curb Your Enthusiasm music, like as soon as you said that shit. Just
it's a tough one, man. Because man, I would be all over RDA versus Kevin Holland.
That would be sick.
Yeah, I think that would be the fight to make there because Kevin Holland is, and not to go back to, you know, the fight that we already finished breaking down to, but Kevin Holland seems pretty open about like the fact that he's here for, he's a prize fighter. He doesn't really seem too keen on chasing the title or being like, okay, I need to work my way up to the ranks. Like Kevin Holland seems content to, I mean, he was just retired, quotation fingers.
Right.
Like he wants the same thing. He just wants money fights. He wants these, you know, marquee fights. And Rafael dos Anjos, I think, is more of that for him versus, you know, what could potentially be an awkward fight with Stephen Thompson. But anyways, let's break down this RDA versus Brian Barberena fight and do our due diligence. I don't see any path to victory for Brian Barberena here, aside from just
none. None. I mean, he very well could catch a few punches and put them like one or two things together and string something together and make things a little like awkward and goofy and maybe capitalize on a goofy moment where RDA is not completely in the moment. But I just can't, like, I kept thinking about it like before this, like, well, how could this happen? And then I just really hope it's not one of those things where we find out how, you know, and that Brian Barberena is just all whacked out. I fucking told you on the mic, and it's like, geez, dude.
When you look at the fight, see, Brian Barberena, he's on a 3-fight win streak, respectable, with wins over Robbie Lawler and Matt Brown, Darian Weeks. Robbie Lawler and Matt Brown, he's really kind of going on almost like this Legends tour of the welterweight division with names like that. And I just, when I saw those names, I thought, like, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson would be the ideal next name, like, too. You know, he kind of fits in with those guys. He wasn't fighting in the same era necessarily, but he's pretty much, I mean, at 39, he's over the hill now, you know, past his prime. It would have made so much more sense.
Is this for RDA like a good a family member of mine had like a family friend that came to all the events, and she was like just gorgeous knockout girl, but had never got married, you know, and gotten close a few times. And then she started getting older, and she's like, you never really know where you are until you start seeing the type of dudes that ask you out. And she's like, I was always kind of confident in the dudes that asked me out. And then like now it's just been like a shit show. And so just like RDA is just like, this is what I'm doing. Like, who have I been in here with? Who have I dismantled? And then now like, this is the guy, you know? It's like that. And then she just brings like a weird guy to the wedding, and you're like, she's dating that guy now, you know? It's like, what the fuck?
You know, that's a really great point, because I'm looking at his record right now, and in terms of name value, big drop off. I mean, a lot of people would probably say the same. Would probably say the same thing about Rafael Fiziev, but we both know like where Rafael Fiziev fits into this lightweight division. But Fiziev, Moicano, Felder, Chiesa, Edwards, Kevin Lee. I mean, that one hasn't aged super well, but it was a win. A win's a win.
At the
Usman,
time,
Covington.
Kevin
Well,
Lee
yeah,
was like, fuck.
they were pushing him hard at that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's come to this. And maybe the UFC is looking at this like, all right, you asked for these legacy fights, and there's so many factors into like why certain fights just can't get made. I'm sure these guys can't make weight on time or just scheduling wise. So maybe they're looking at this as like, okay, we're giving him a give me fight. This is a fight RDA should win, providing that RDA isn't about to like slip, because this is a guy who like really held on. I wouldn't say held on to his prime, but remained competitive. Is to this day not an easy fight for anybody. It's a tough night out. Nobody wants to fight RDA because he's undervalued and ultra competitive. Let's just say it. You know what I mean? He's one of the most underrated UFC lightweight champs in the game. And his run up to his lightweight championship bout was fantastic. He's fought everyone they put in front of him. I think that barring any kind of situation where we find out that physically RDA is starting to fall off a lot faster than we had anticipated, it's going to be a tough one for Bryan Barberena to make any kind of a meaningful difference in this one. He's going to have to just catch RDA, because I'm looking at RDA and his physique. The guy's always been in shape. He's never looked.
Yep.
There's never been a soft body RDA era or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like he's always been just
bad or questionable cardio RDA, and that's never the issue. So tactically, he's on point. Skills are on point. He's got a good gas tank. Fucking, we're talking about fight IQ.
Yeah.
The dude's just got it all. So
if I had to kind of like figure out some kind of a path to victory, or how this fight would have to play out for Bryan Barberena to get the edge, you'd really have to kind of like suck Rafael dos Anjos into a brawl. Which RDA has been in brawls. He's willing to indulge a little bit. I mean, I picture that flurry of punches against Robbie Lawler when he had him up against the cage. Like that wasn't necessarily tactically brilliant. It was just kind of a just bleed moment. You know what I mean? So there's that. But I really think it's going to be the leg kicks or the more dynamic striking offense of Rafael dos Anjos that's going to really give Bryan Barberena trouble.
Yeah, he's going to chop those legs down.
So 2 picks firmly in for Rafael dos Anjos. And now we move on to Matheus Nicolau, Matt Schnell. I mentioned Matt Schnell a little earlier in the episode. I was doing a little bit of research on him before we started recording, and that's what reminded me of that Sumadaerji fight. Looking at their records, I think Matt Schnell has taken the harder losses, but they are against names that are a little bit more forgivable. Before that Sumadaerji win, he was coming off of back-to-back losses to Brandon Royval, Rogerio Bontorin, and then he also has an earlier loss to Alexandre Pantoja. So I'm looking at those and thinking,
goddamn, dude. And that's
back in 2016, Rob Font. So
dude. And Pantoja, like we were talking about, like, I mean, the last few times we've seen this guy Pantoja fight, just like straight up fucking snake in the grass, dude. That guy's waiting to kill somebody. I cannot wait to see what he does in 2023, dude. I'm excited for that guy, but don't want to derail it. But that just kind of puts a point on, like, man, this guy can fuck. He's been in there with some fucking killers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then looking at Matheus Nicolau, I mean, he has the more impressive record at 18-2-1. He hasn't tasted defeat nearly as many times, but his UFC tenure has not been as impressive. He's on a 5-fight win streak right now, with his 3 most recent wins coming over David Dvorak, who is really good. I'm pretty high on David Dvorak. Tim Elliott and Manel Kopp, also very good. But man, that Dvorak fight was tough to watch. I went back and rewatched that one. And if we're gonna compare their recent performances with Matt Schnell and Sumadaerji and that David Dvorak fight for Matheus Nicolau, I'm worrying that Mateus Nicolau might be too much of a slow starter, might not have enough output to deal with a guy like Matt Schnell, who is not going to wait for him.
Yeah.
I think Matt Schnell is shown, especially in that Sumaderji fight specifically, that he's more durable. He's got more heart. He's got more experience, more high level experience. I think it's going to be a rough night out for Mateus Nicolau. I think that if I could maybe kind of like play devil's advocate a little bit here, or kind of predict how Mateus Nicolau could have success, is I think Matt Schnell is going to wake him up. He's not going to let him have that slow fight.
That's what I was going to say. Okay,
yeah.
Point, dude. I'll let you go on, but yeah, good point, dude.
So yeah, pretty much just that. I think I'm not so worried that it's going to be a bad fight based off of Mateus Nicolau's previous fight, but I think that Matt Schnell is really going to elevate the competitiveness in this fight, but I think he's going to get his hand raised here. But I'll let you go ahead.
No, absolutely. See, that's the thing that I was exactly as when we were talking about it, and when you brought up like the slow start, I was thinking, well, if he's a slow starter and he needs to get like smacked around a little bit to get going, he's got the right guy in there to do it for him.
Yeah.
So, you know, that I just couldn't agree more with with your point, man. That's a good point, and hopefully that's what happens, and it turns it into another banger fight. Having back-to-back bangers like Matt Schnell, or it's just kind of hard to do, especially like coming. I'm trying to pick Nicolau, but I can't. I guess I'm like trying to talk myself into it, but I just can't.
Yeah.
And if he comes out to Reba again,
yes. I think Nicolau might, in the long run, even this feels a little too early to say, but I mean, he might have a higher ceiling. He's definitely taken less punishment than
definitely
Matt
has a
Schnell.
Higher ceiling. Yeah.
Schnell,
we kind of know what we're getting. Where Nicolau, he's maybe ascending still, you know?
Yes. Good point. Heavyweight fun. Tai Tuivasa gets a really, really nice matchup on Sergey Pavlovich. They're really doing Tai Tuivasa a favor here after he had to go in there and get pieced up by Cyril Gane. Which, I mean, and to his credit too, I saw that the UFC were running that clip of him dropping Cyril Gane, and they just like replayed it over and over. It's like one clip of that fight and just from like 8 different angles in slow motion. Just like, let's just pretend that's all that fight was. Cyril Gane gets in there with the man who most recently put the screws to Derek Lewis and Sergey Pavlovich.
Pavlovich wins this one, man. I got Pavlovich here.
This is a pick'em for me, man, because I kind of feel like Tai Tuivasa is a little bit craftier of a striker, but it's shown us that he might not necessarily have the chin of Pavlovich. And I mean, to his credit, we just haven't seen it tested as much for Pavlovich. So this is, but Pavlovich has that reach, though. Pavlovich has an insane reach. Let me pull it up so I can show it to you, so I can relay it to you.
You show it to me? Look at this. Look at this reach.
So their height is Tai Tuivasa is 6'2" versus Pavlovich is 6'3". The reach, 75-inch reach for Tai Tuivasa, 84-inch reach for Sergey Pavlovich.
That is not something to sneeze at as far as like almost a 10-inch reach advantage. Goddamn.
It's insane. I think I was laughing so hard because I was watching one of Greg Hardy's. Am I mixing up his name? Greg Hardy, not Greg Hardy. Dan Hardy, The War Room, where he was breaking it down. Right. Yeah. And he has, he calls it the ape index, where if your reach is...
Careful with that one, Dan. Careful with that one. Careful. As far as breaking down fighters.
Yeah. I think it's if your height is shorter than your opponent, but your reach is longer than theirs, then that's the positive in the ape index. It had a really, really interesting way of breaking it down. But I think that, I'm kind of with you there. That I think that's definitely going to be the biggest challenge for Tai Tuivasa is getting inside that reach. But you also got to wonder too, like, who do you give the edge to for grappling? I haven't seen any of Sergey Pavlovich's grappling, but if it goes to the ground, how do you see that playing out?
Oh man, I wouldn't be the guy to really say what the heck. I think he's going to get him in it. I don't know,
Hmm.
but I definitely think that Pavlovich, just from what I've seen in his last few fights, he's going to have like he's going to be more competent. He's going to be
Hmm.
stronger, and he's going to have a better, I guess, like more of a. And it's hard to say that against with Tuivasa, but and it's like kind of like a cop out because their body types are going to be a little different also.
Hmm.
But so it's kind of hard to say. Like, I think that the fat guy is going to take the worst of it if it gets to like more of an athletic type of match. But I think Pavlovich is going to be more than equipped to handle it if things get kind of into it. And I don't see it being something to where, God, I want to like stop myself from talking because like as I'm saying it, like he's gonna get like a Darce, like a sneak, like a weird Darce choke or like
Oh.
you know what I mean, like one of those weird.
Uh,
But yeah, I just don't see it going to the ground like at all unless one of them gets rocked pretty hard and then they're just trying to kind of run the clock out with a takedown attempt, kind of, or maybe a guy's down in a round and just wants to steal one at the end. But I don't see it as being like a chess match on the grappling side.
no, definitely not. And I mean, both of these guys, and you're absolutely right. It's probably not going there unless somebody gets dropped and they're going in for the finishing touches because both
Right.
of these guys being head hunting heavyweights, they don't want to be rolling around and exhausting their conditioning. I think for me, it is mostly Sergey Pavlovich's his willingness to come forward with almost reckless abandon. And I think
Yeah.
Tai Tuivasa, he might potentially not be the harder hitter, but I think he might be the better counterpuncher. So I'm very, very
Yes.
interested in seeing how that's because I think you're absolutely right. Pavlovich is going to come forward, and I think that he's going to be the one that's kind of like dictating where the fight is happening in the cage. I think he's going to be stalking. I think that. I think Tai Tuivasa is going to be kind of with his back against the cage, doing a lot more lateral movement. And I don't see. I'm interested in seeing if Sergey Pavlovich will cut a corner or if he's literally just going to be
Yeah.
chasing in a straight line. Because I think if it if
Yeah.
it goes like that, I think it's going to be a short night for. I'll instantly like be like, okay, Tai Tuivasa is going to take this. But as soon as I see
Yeah.
Sergey Pavlovich cut a corner and be like, no, 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 you stay right there, then I'll be like,
Yeah.
okay, this is going to be trouble for Tai Tuivasa.
No, very good point, man. That's a really good point. If he's just keeping his head straight back and he's just kind of coming forward on a like making it an easy target, then okay.
Yeah, because it's kind of what he did with Derek Lewis, and it worked. It worked with Derek Lewis,
Yeah.
but and I don't think that like Derek Lewis or Tai Tuivasa is necessarily like is leagues above Derek Lewis in terms of like movement or footwork or anything like that. So
Right.
yeah,
No, good
so
point,
that
man.
that's a fun heavyweight one, man. I mean, usually I see a heavyweight fight on a main card and I kind of roll my eyes a little bit and be like, why are you putting heavyweights on the main
Yeah.
card? But that's an exciting one.
That's a good one for a
Uh,
live crowd too. That's going to get everything kind of. I think that has the potential to get everything kind of like fuck. The juice is going for the co-main and main to kind of to really show out. So hopefully they do
I
that.
forgot I forgot this one was in Florida. I was just assuming that it was another Apex card.
No, it's in
So
Orlando, right? Yeah.
yeah, Orlando, Florida, Amway Center. That's exciting to hear. It's always nice when they have a fight night can get a crowd going.
Yeah.
Some fun WMMA fights on the early card that I'm excited for. That I'm not necessarily going to break down, but I'll give my picks really quick. Yasmin Yaudigi. Let's see, Angela Hill versus Emily Ducote. I'll go Ducote. Michael Johnson versus Mark Diakiese is on the prelims also. That's
Ears
always you
prick
can't
up
miss a
when
Michael
Michael
Johnson fight.
Johnson. Yeah, ears prick up when Michael Johnson's on the card.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to see a finish, watch that
Yeah.
fight. Tracy Cortez versus Amanda Hebos. That's a fun one in flyweight. That's going to be an interesting one. I don't like the lack of Tracy Cortez hasn't been as active as I would like, and Amanda Hebos has been giving us mixed results at flyweight. So that's an interesting one right
Right.
there too. Clay Guida is back against Scott Holtzman. Clay
Yep.
Guida, 37-22.
Jeez.
Jeez.
He's looked good lately. He's looked good lately though.
He's really really steered into the wrestling, which I mean, some people will listen to this who maybe like if you haven't been watching MMA since like 2009, you'd probably be like, well, Clay Guida has always been a wrestler, but like he's
Yeah,
made it
no,
his fucking
yeah,
lifestyle now. Like
yeah.
he's all in now. He's like Joe Rogan on his carnivore diet. Like that's the equivalent for how down he is for
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yep.
What's this? I'm hearing about some guy affiliated with Joe Rogan. Do you know anything about that? That everyone thought he was natty for some
Oh, the
reason.
Liver King. Yeah,
The
he's
Liver
not.
King,
He's
yeah.
not. He's affiliated with Joe Rogan.
I don't know. I think whoever brought it up to me, it was like, yeah, this guy who was on a Rogan show, like talking about how he's got all his muscle from eating nothing but liver. But
I don't know
I'm
if
like,
he was ever on Rogan. I know Rogan shits on him. Rogan's
oh
has like
really?
shit on him for being like, yeah, you're stupid. Liver King is Brendan Schaub's boy. That's like Brendan Schaub's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is can get. I mean, same. I get. I don't
I,
know.
I I'm
Like,
I'm ashamed that I even brought him up now because
no, yeah, no, no. It's hilarious. So, the same guy. So there's a dude. I'll break it down. I guess I can break it down as fast as I can. There's a dude who I really like his channel, Derek. It's called More Plates, More Dates, and he's been on Rogan a lot. And he's really interesting because he's like, is the guy natural or is he not? And then he's very like clinical with how it is. Like he doesn't just talk shit. And I sent you a few links on like on Adesanya and why he like just kind of breaks down how now he's on steroids, and he kind of guesses as to what types of steroids that the guys are on.
oh,
And yeah, he does really good break. He did a really good breakdown of Kamaru Usman, like a 44-minute breakdown of like exactly what it is, and explaining like, oh well, you know, how does a guy like Usman have jacked up knees, can't run, can't swim, can't do anything, but his power gets stronger, his power gets way crazier, and his cardio gets crazier, but the guy can't do any cardio. How does that happen? How does that work? So he's like one of those guys who does it. Well, this dude Liver King is going out there saying like, okay, so you walk barefoot, you put your balls under sunlight,
oh,
you you eat you eat like liver and like chicharrones, and like you live like by these tenets of like ancient like people, like you can't keep the phone anywhere near your balls, like your phone has to be like off and away from your testicles like if you're not on it. And it's like, well, okay, like, and he's like, that's why I'm jacked as fuck. And like it's like, whoa, okay. And he like walks around with his shirt off, and it's like, dude, you're on steroids. Like you can just tell you're on
clearly, I saw the
steroids.
pictures of the guy and I'm like, how did anybody think he wasn't on steroids?
Yeah.
What are you
So then,
talking
and then
about?
he did like this world tour, and then he was at uh the Islam fight. He was like, and he was like, and then like he wanted to like, even Hasbullah called him out like, get the fuck away from me, because like he's like, let me take a picture with you. I'm Mineral King. I'm Liver King. Let
Liver
me
King.
take a picture with you, Mineral King. That's what I say. He goes, let me take a picture with you. And then Hasbullah goes, okay, whatever. And then like he like looks aside and he's like, why am I taking a picture with this guy? I'd rather take a picture with a fucking dog. Like the translation is like, literally, I'd rather be taking a picture with a fucking dog, but okay. And then
God
he like
damn.
smiles and goes, okay. He like said it out loud, but like, obviously there's a translation gap or like a communication gap. But he's like, hey, I'm Liver King. Can I take a picture with you, Hezbollah? And then Hezbollah look, and like he says it out loud. I'd rather. And then like I saw it like on a post where it's, I'd rather be taking a picture with a fucking dog right now. And like he's like smiling, and Hezbollah's like, okay. And well, anyway, so somebody or emails leaked where he was going to different bodybuilding coaches and different doctors, and he explaining what he takes, and he takes nearly $15,000 worth of steroids, and he takes insane amount of and you notice his torso, like if you look at it, like how his torso is kind of distended and like out. If you see people like that, it's like HGH. Like you take HGH. It's like it looks like you have like a fucking turtle shell, like you're wearing a turtle shell turned
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, he had like an
And
8-pack.
yeah, so it's like it's HGH. It's called like palumboism, where you're just taking an insane amount of HGH. And I guess he takes, of that $15,000, he's taking like $11,000 of HGH. He
Shit.
takes like, he takes like 3 to 4 times what someone who has like clinically low levels of growth hormone, he takes like a crazy ass amount. And so, and and he's like, he's an idiot because they have like a supercut of like he just like yelling at people like, don't you ever fucking say I'm on steroids, don't you ever fucking tell me. And he's like, what's the word that he uses this insane word about being on steroids, like what's primal, like subprimal, you're subprimal, I'm primal, you're like that's a subprimal thing to say. He has like his whole thing. Well,
You need steroids because you're not putting your balls in the sun. Like,
yeah. So Derek he's like, okay, because Derek has taken every steroid ever and can explain. Like, I just love listening to the way the guy talks about it, right? So he's like, okay, dude, whatever. And so he kind of breaks down, and then he can break down. He can break down. He also broke down. He did a great breakdown of when John Jones popped against Cormier. He broke down because they posted John Jones's blood, like his test. Well, they also posted Cormier's, and then Derek's like, "Hey, anyone who has to cut that crazy amount of weight, Daniel Cormier's testosterone level should be in the fucking shithole because you can't eat at a negative calories to cut the amount of weight that he has to and have a testosterone level that high. But his testosterone level was like super high. Why is that? Anyway, he's like really good at reading blood, like blood and hormone levels also. So he's breaking down. This guy sent all these emails about what he's taking, how to take it, when to take it, and so just basically like leaked emails with redacted information.
crazy.
And then it turned out, and then at the end of the video that he did on Liver King, he goes, it was super crazy. So because Derek is also a coach, he's a bodybuilding coach, and will give people information on like diet, lifting, and taking steroids if you want. And so he's like, so I went and I saw in the email what this guy's Brian Johnson at liverking.com or whatever it is, Liver King at whatever, Primal Foods, whatever. So he goes on his Gmail and types that in, any emails I've got from it. He's like, I found an email from 3 years ago from the guy. And so he reads it out loud and he's like, this is what I'm taking. This is how much I take. Can I take this much? I've heard that. And so he's like,
Holy
dude,
shit.
you're a fucking, and he just put it on the screen and he's like, I'll give you guys whatever. He's like, any of you 4chan guys out there want to fucking go crazy as far as like IP addresses and, whatever information you need, I'll give it to you, whatever. It's like, and the thing that was crazy was the super, and then he just went after Joe Rogan. He's like, Joe Rogan is a fucking fake subprime. Joe Rogan takes steroids. Joe Rogan, let's look at Joe Rogan's balls. And
as if that was ever even a question.
Yeah.
And it's nuts too, because it's like nobody would care if he was just like, yeah, I'm an older guy, I'm on all the steroids and I'm jacked. But it's the grift.
Fuck yeah,
that
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I can't wait. I'm counting down the days. Dude. I cannot wait.
It's the weird grift that comes along with it, where he feels the need to turn around and be like, and say it's because he's like he's exposing his balls to sunlight and eating nothing but liver and shit. And it's like, dude, anything to sell people. Yeah.
And so what Derek did too was he took that psychological portion of it to where like how charlatans work. And how a charlatan works and how someone who's a good teacher works, and someone who actually has information on things. So like it's like the opposite of this guy Derek, where he's like, yeah, dude, I take steroids. Like I understand I've been to the darkest part of doing fucking steroids. I've taken Trenbolone and fucking Deca and all these crazy things. I know what happens. He's like, I've also on the good part of it where I've seen people turn their lives around because of it. So and he's like, take it for what it's worth. I'm not even a doctor. This is just how it works. This is what I know. Hope it helps you. Where this guy's like, if the only way you're going to fucking get the way I am is by fucking walking into the fucking ground, being in fucking bodies of water for certain amounts of time. It's just like, dude, you are insane. And he also sandbagged Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa called him out. I don't know if you saw that, but he was on a podcast with Paulo Costa where they had to like eat liver, like who could eat the most liver. And then Mineral or Liver King was like, "You're on steroids," like basically trying to say like, Paulo Costa, "You're on steroids. I'm not. You are." And then Paulo Costa was like, "What the fuck?" And they're talking about secret juice and everything else. So they're like, "Okay, well, we'll have a liver eating contest, right?" So Costa's like, "Okay." So Costa's like trying to eat it, and he's like, "This is fucking gross," you know. And then he gets like the Liver King's at the end, and he notices like it's cooked and it has barbecue sauce. He's like, "You gave me raw, smelling ass liver,
He's
and you're
eating
eating
raw
cooked."
liver.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
eating cooked with barbecue sauce. He's like, "I would be able to eat it if mine was like had sauce on it and was like prepared. You gave me shit like off the fucking shelf. Like you're a dick, dude."
yeah.
So yeah,
That's
fuck that guy.
it's been funny seeing it all unravel. But on the topic of being all natty,
Yeah.
it's something I almost forgot to touch on earlier. Kayla Harrison and Larissa Pacheco definitely putting their balls in the sun.
Yeah.
Definitely natty. And I wanted to. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the PFL card
Highlights.
from?
I did not. I did
Some
not
highlights.
watch. I watched. I was watching it on this weird thing on online, which is almost like Reddit, but not. And it gives highlights like as they go, and I just kind of like kept keeping up with it because I just wanted to see how the Moraes fight went. I don't
Oh
know
yeah, yeah.
why I cared, but I wanted to see how that went for whatever weird reason. And then I saw who Kayla Harrison was fighting, and I was like, "Hey, let's check this out." Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Man.
All I saw was the Larissa Pacheco fight and the Kayla Harrison fight, and I feel like I wanted to give a little breakdown, a recap of it because well,
Yeah,
it's another big like kind of shocking upset win, you know, because we had Alex Pereira this over Israel Adesanya this year, which wasn't as shocking, but
shocker. Yeah.
Leon Edwards over Kamaru Usman, and now this one where not a lot of people were giving Larissa Pacheco a shot in this because Kayla Harrison has been the queen, the uncrowned queen of this very very deep competitive women's lightweight division,
Right.
and
Exactly.
honestly, I was never really too big of a critic of the level of competition that she's been fighting because that's just what the women's lightweight landscape is. You know, I've heard a
Right.
lot of people be critics of it, like, oh, they're not signing anyone for her to fight, and she's crushing cans, and it's like, guys, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like if I think I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but like if Dana White decided he's not going to, they're about to get rid of the women's featherweight division almost, but
Right.
if he decided let's start a women's lightweight division and let's sign a bunch of free agents, women, lightweight women, it's going to be exactly the same level of competition Kayla's been fighting over in
Yeah. It's
PFL.
not
Like,
gonna. Right. No. Very good
yeah,
point, dude. Yeah.
they're not suddenly going to become elevated because they are now signed to the UFC. So
And
it's yeah.
it was a shrewd business move because I remember at the time when she was like a free agent and everybody's like, "Why is Dana's gonna? It's gonna happen to him." Like he's not gonna fucking. He don't give a fuck.
It's no one for her to
He's
fight.
not. Yeah. He doesn't fucking care. Yeah.
Yeah. And now like going into this Larissa Pacheco fight, I went back and rewatched their second fight before and most of the highlights from the first fight going into this third one. But I thought like, okay, Larissa Pacheco is the only woman who has taken her to a decision that I could recall, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have their records up in front of me. And I thought, okay, Pacheco has potential to come in and get the upset here if she does everything right.
Right.
And I watched this fight, and to my eyes, she did everything wrong and still won. It was very
Right.
weird
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was talking to Mike as it was happening, and we were messaging each other back and forth, and I was like, Pacheco did a lot of damage off of her back. She ended up there a lot, and she was just like throwing hammer fists off her back and
Those
elbows
hammer fists
and
were
landing.
pretty devastating. Yeah.
Yeah, they were there, but I just kind of kept thinking, well, the judges aren't going to reward this. You know, I mean, she was
Yeah.
arguably winning off of her back, but I just don't think they're going to give it to her, and they did.
Yeah.
So it was pretty impressive. But I just thought like it was crazy because surely Larissa Pacheco wasn't training to go and win that fight by ending up on her back and hitting Kayla with
Yeah.
hammer fists, you know? So I kind of I'm intrigued because I think there's definitely going to be a rematch. There's nothing else
Oh yeah,
for
there have to
Kayla
be.
to
Yeah,
do.
what else are you gonna do? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I'm sure the PFL will fuck over their tournament system or whatever because now they actually. I'm interested in also seeing like what it looks like for the PFL because Kayla I guess has been the closest thing that they'd have to a marquee name or a star. So,
Showtime, right? They're Showtime.
Showtime Pettis, but I mean he's been getting fucking finished by body triangles and shit like that. So it's
Yeah,
like,
Shane
and
Burgos
and
is gonna
and
was gonna
y-
was about. I like I said, he was about to eat Marlon Rice asshole first, but he
yeah,
got out of that.
yeah, they've definitely had some notable names that could be those guys, but no one really has quite broken through. And Kayla has been like the default just because of sheer dominance. But now
Right.
I'm kind of wondering if how advantageous it is for the PFL to now have Kayla in her next fight being coming off of a loss and now potentially looking at this, Pacheco versus Kayla 4 and being like, oh, now it's closer to a pick 'em because if they rematched again next year, I'm still going to pick Kayla,
Yeah.
but there's like plenty of room for improvement for Larissa because, like I said, she did everything wrong and still won. So what if she does things right in the next
Yeah.
fight? I don't know because I would say there's only one round where I think that Larissa Pacheco won because of, in the stand up, like on the feet. The other ones, I think she won off of her back, which is just
It's
a weird
insane.
dynamic. It's
Yeah,
very, very
and
weird.
especially if you when I hear "went off your back," you think triangle choke, or you think a crazy up kick. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And what was hammer fists? And there's a few guys who are pretty deadly off their back, but or people in this case, there's a few people, but yeah, that was a very weird. When I went back and watched like the highlights and certain clips from it, those are hammer fists were fucking brutal.
Yeah, yeah. I think Larissa Pacheco. It was another one where I was going into that fight after having watched Dan Hardy's War Room, and he gave a really good breakdown. What I also agreed, what I think would be the keys to victory for Pacheco. And I was watching it, thinking like she's not doing any of that, but she's somehow still winning.
Yeah,
It was
she's
just
so
so
winning.
fucking weird to me. And I think Kayla Harrison didn't really sell it well either because afterwards she looked like a defeated fighter before
Yeah,
even before the judges made the or they announced the decision. She was standing there like she knew she lost. So I was like, oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yep. And then on Reddit, they do have like if you watch like our MMA as they post, they have like the results, and then you always know like, oh shit, like if you see them like standing up, you're like, oh, this shit's gonna be fucking sick. Or, if it's like one of those lower card, or just a card that you haven't, or a fight that you haven't seen on that card yet, and then you see the highlight on Reddit. When you clicked it, and then you watched and you saw her face standing there before they called it out, you're like, fuck, she lost. It was, yeah,
Yeah.
good point, dude. As far as what, yeah, the body language at the end there.
I've noticed that when I've been keeping an eye on Reddit for gifs when I'm not able to watch the fights.
Yeah,
And I am always a little bit sad too when I click on one and I see that they're just standing there with the ref and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, so it went to decision. I really would have
yeah.
preferred if you. I don't need a gif of the announcer
Yeah,
announcing the
yeah.
winner. Like,
Just give the card or give the scorecard. I'd rather see
yeah,
that than
give me
the
some
the
highlights, I
ref
guess.
raises the hand. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's always been frustrating. But now that I mentioned that, also I will probably be watching Reddit closely for results for this weekend's card, which we just broke down because I am going to be out of town. So I don't know what I'm going to be able to watch. I'm going to be on the road for a bit, so I will try to have the fights on and be kind of watching out of the corner of my eye or just listening. And I think you said you're also going to be out of town, right?
yeah. Well, I will be in Santa Clara. I'm taking my kids to their first football game. So, but that's on a Sunday. But we'll be driving up Saturday. So we'll see if I can find like somewhere to watch it. Like if I can watch it in the hotel room or something.
You gotta make your wife give you play-by-play.
Oh, yeah.
What position? Like who?
Have her let me know.
Yeah, so I not sure what of the fights we'll be able to talk about next week, but I think we'll still we'll still crank out an episode for sure. We'll do our due diligence and talk about what matters. But we are getting close to the end of the year. It is almost that like fuck off Christmas holiday time, and we are also going to be looking at a bit of a break. I think there's supposed to be like 3 weeks with no UFC cards coming up, like between sometime from December to January. It's going to be a tough one, man.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find a way to fill airtime.
No, it's going to be definitely the awards show is going to come in the clutch for at least one of those weeks, but
that's definitely going to help. Yeah, we might do that and break it up into 2 episodes then. I think one episode we should figure out all of our nominees, and then on the next episode we'll announce them.
Yep. And then
sounds fun, man.
We'll figure out if we could get like what your best, like your list of walkout songs, and like have you do a fucking, well, we'll try and find like a copyright like loophole, like those like the music you can get off Instagram where it's like it sounds like the song but it's not,
what it's like just the instrumental from a karaoke track or something.
Yeah.
Just barely different enough.
Yeah,
no, that would be really fun. And in fact, that's another good category. Best walkout. That's going to be a hard one to research, though. Just looking for specific walkouts.
Definitely not Style Bender's Undertaker. Definitely not that one.
That one wasn't going to make, but that one certainly wasn't going to make my list. But nothing is really jumping out to me right now. I really like Frankie Edgar's most recent walkout. But I've always liked Frankie Edgar walkout, and that's also going to be some heavy recency bias. So that'll be one to think about, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I think we can wrap this one up. Another good episode. I'm excited to be back and doing the pod. Thank you for joining me again, Brandon.
De Ritter, the Dutch Knight fights on Friday morning. That guy's interesting. Have you seen that dude?
Maybe we might stray from the UFC content for a bit and cover some non-UFC offerings. I mean, I know we just talked about some PFL a little bit, but
that part of the world could give a fuck less about Christmas. So maybe we can take a. Hopefully they have some, and it would be smart for them to like throw some bangers out during the holidays. I don't know if I'll have to look at what they've got event-wise coming up, but that'd be like a shrewd business move for them to do that.
Hell yeah, sip some eggnog and watch some ONE FC. I'm all about it, man. All right, folks, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that fun stuff. We will catch you on the next episode of The Fight Club. Have a good one.